Watch this.
It's Friday. You know what that means? We made it to the end of the week. Ahead on the 208, another day, another legislative update. And on Friday, it's all about the mandatory minimum law and adding fentanyl to the list of drugs that can be charged for. We have heavy testimony from both sides.
I mean, it's impacting the whole family.
The news of Saltzer Health being sold or closing down didn't just rock the healthcare world, it's impacting patients across the Treasure Valley, including one woman who says that she finally found a doctor after searching for months, but now she's back at square one.
I think it's just a really fun, quirky part of Galena Lodge.
Idaho's full of quirky fun things, and you can add a free loaner dog at Lovely Lodge to the list. We found out Galena Lodge has the perfect puppy program going on right now after a visitor helped them go viral. Well, we made it to Friday. What a run this week. How about that write-in? All right, just kidding. We won't talk about road conditions, but still, today lawmakers tried their best to wrap up business early so that they could drive back home to their home districts. You can imagine the commute home to north or eastern Idaho likely won't be fun. Hope everybody made it home safe, but they tried to get out of there pretty quickly. But business-wise, there was one extended committee meeting that took center stage, and it sets up a major vote for next week. Lawmakers are weighing a proposed legislation that centers on fentanyl. House Bill 406 would create a new crime of trafficking in fentanyl for knowingly manufacturing, delivering, or possessing 4+ grams of various fentanyl-related substances. And the penalties would be mandatory minimum prison sentences of 3 to 10 years. The legislation would also create another new crime of drug-induced homicide. If someone violates the trafficking laws and provides controlled substances like fentanyl to someone who then dies as a result of taking the substance, the penalty would be life imprisonment. Lawmakers say that the concept is not meant to capture the personal users. It is intended to make it clear for the punishment that it's very serious here in Idaho for those who choose to manufacture, deliver, or bring into the state large amounts of fentanyl. Two very different perspectives, though, on the law. One camp thinks that this is a strong message to drug dealing operations to avoid Idaho or go to prison forever. The other camp, they understand that argument, but they worry that there are circumstances that could land people in serious trouble, people who are actually victims themselves. Former Ada County prosecutor Jean Fisher is in Camp 2. She shared a thought during public testimony, floating the question, how does this proposed law compare to what's already on the books in Idaho?
It does not require, it does require a criminal act, that is the turning over of drugs, but it does not require any intent to kill. It sounds very much like involuntary manslaughter, and quite frankly, it's much easier to prove. Causation issues in the drug-induced homicide is very difficult. How do you prove that the last person who gave something to someone caused their death? It is a problem. Most people involved in this are polysubstance abusers, and they're going to get ensnared by it. I'm also very concerned about the juvenile aspects of this because they will fall under the mandatory auto waiver for juveniles, which is a huge issue that you should be concerned about.
And that waiver essentially means that a juvenile, 16 and other, would be charged as an adult. So law enforcement from around the area testified in favor of the legislation. We also heard from Grant Loebs. He's the prosecutor for Twin Falls and on the board for the Idaho Prosecuting Attorneys Association. He testified in favor of the law. He believes the strong nature of the law will deter major drug dealing operations.
It's very difficult to answer every single tiny little what if this, what if that hypothetical, because everything is fact dependent. But the thing is that these kinds of mandatory minimums deter the people we want to deter. They deter the big dealers, they deter the cartels, because as I said, everything they do is business based. They don't want to go to prison for 10 years. They don't want their lieutenants to go to prison for 10 years, because, you know, in every business, manpower costs you money. So the point here is to put this bill into place to let the drug dealers know that we're serious about this, that if you deal in large quantities in the state of Idaho, you are going to get hammered, and therefore, being intelligent human beings and in a business to make money, they will say, Why bother with Idaho? Let's just go next door. Let's go to Utah where they don't care. Let's go to Nevada where they don't care. Let's go to any state surrounding Idaho where they don't care. We'll make just as much money and we won't go to prison for 10 years.
Lawmakers in the House Judiciary and Rules Administration Committee will think everything over the weekend. They listened to several hours of testimony this morning and this afternoon. So they're expected to vote on the proposal on Tuesday. We will keep an eye on it. There's a lot to get into from both sides. Well, it's confusing times for Treasure Valley doctors, nurses, and patients. Intermountain Health plans to sell the Saltzer Treasure Valley healthcare system. And if they can't find a buyer, well, they're just going to have to go out of business by the end of March. And that could impact hundreds of employees and up to 80,000 patients. It's a problem for a state where healthcare and access to a physician, it's already a delicate line to walk. It's also an announcement that caught a lot of people off guard without proving the necessary answers. Here's Andrew Bartline.
10-mile crossings covered in new developments.
It looks like recently built this building here.
But one business may have bet too big.
Not good.
Kim Verbrugge's a Saltzer patient.
Now I have to go find another doctor.
Or at least she is for now, until the end of March. At best, Intermountain Health plans to sell all Treasure Valley Saltzer locations. At worst, all doors will be closed.
They say it's not a financially viable long-term model.
Jesse Klebeck is one of their physicians.
I mean, ideally, I wish there would have either been a mechanism to have a sale in place or at least have some process before putting a date forward and just closing the doors. I don't think it leaves us enough time to ensure patients have an adequate transfer of care.
And that transfer can be complicated because for many, it's tough to even find a Treasure Valley doctor in the first place.
Yes.
For 3 months, Kim called 7 doctors approved by her insurance.
Yeah, we all moved here and
They were all booked,
just,
not taking new patients.
I don't want to have to go doing this all the time.
That is, until she finally found one. And then lost it. Left, crossed up.
We've got ongoing issues that need to be dealt with, and so yeah. She said, "Oh, I'll give you a prescription for a year for your meds." I'm like, "Okay." Hopefully that works. Hopefully I don't need anything else.
If you recall from almost exactly 10 years ago, St. Luke's tried to absorb Saltzer. It was during a moment when Saltzer Health was looking at their long-term viability. They were evaluating different business models for billing their services. Now, in lay terms, healthcare billing is a series of fragmented fees, or it can be. Saltzer saw their future was a more holistic, integrated approach. Well, St. Luke's aligned with that vision as they were already doing it. It's called a value-based billing system. But a federal judge blocked that acquisition. He said it violated antitrust laws. And even though the opinion held a sale to St. Luke's is likely to improve health care in the Treasure Valley, the opinion read, quote, "There are other ways to achieve the same effect that do not run afoul of the antitrust laws and do not run such a risk of increased costs, and of these reasons, and all of these reasons, I should say, the acquisition must be unwound." So basically, a business would be better in their leadership, but it's an argument that really doesn't work for antitrust laws. And St. Luke's, their attorney, made that argument in his closing statement of the lawsuit. That lawyer said, quote, "They haven't worked, and that's why we have a crisis in this country. And what we are trying to do, what St. Luke's and Saltzer are trying to do, is to solve that problem in our own unique way in the Treasure Valley." Well, the sale was blocked. Intermountain ultimately made that purchase show. Fast forward 10 years today, it seems the ends still don't meet. And the problem is now impacting a lot of people.
Okay, so I don't want to, summarize this and make it too simple, but it sounds like, St. Luke's and I would imagine St. Alphonsus, they have too much of the market share to be able to absorb another company. They don't want to have a monopoly.
Yes, so a sale, if they were to sell, has to be from outside of it couldn't be St. Luke's or St. Alphonsus, at least those two specifically from what we understand with this lawsuit. So it's not as simple as, oh, St. Luke's will come in and save the day. They got tons of capital. They tried that 10 years ago. It can't happen.
And neither can St. Alphonsus.
I would imagine they can't as well.
Very interesting. Well, there's no concrete answers on a lot of questions out there right now, so our team, including Andrew, will continue to follow this developing story. Thank you so much, Andrew. It's not just legislative and medical news today. We've got scholarships to earn and art contests to win, and all of that and more is in the 411 here on the 208. Here's Abby Davis.
Thomas Creech, the man convicted of killing 2 people in Valley County back in 1974 and killing a fellow inmate in 1981, had his clemency hearing today. He was supposed to be executed by lethal injection last November, but that was postponed. Now his attorneys are trying to change Creech's death sentence to life in prison. They're asking for a jury trial and a new sentencing hearing. We don't know the outcome of the hearing yet, but we'll let you know as soon as we do on KTVB.com. We still don't know why Reed's dairy facility caught on fire in Idaho Falls yesterday afternoon. Firefighters say when they arrived, they saw flames and heavy smoke coming from the original milk barn. It took 2 hours to put the fire out, and the building is considered a complete loss. Fortunately, no one was hurt. Good news! You might not be snowed into your driveway this weekend. ACHD says it's starting to plow residential areas again. After this week's storm, main roads were the top priority, but now crews can focus on neighborhoods that haven't been plowed. Idaho Power is giving out $2,000 academic scholarships for students in its service area. You can apply for one if you're a graduating high school student who plans to enroll full-time in a science, technology, engineering, mathematics, business, or communications program. The program must be at an Idaho or Oregon 2- or 4-year college. And you also must have a 3.75 GPA. The deadline to submit is March 1st on Idaho Power's website. Calling all artists ages 5 to 15. The Idaho State Museum and the Idaho Chinese Organization wants you to submit your art for a pop-up art show for the 2024 Lunar New Year Community Day exhibit, which is scheduled for February 3rd. Use whatever drawing tools you want. Just make sure you display your vision for the Year of the Dragon on a 12 by 12 piece of paper so the museum can frame it. Community judges will pick the top 30 to be shown at the museum. And if you're in the very top, you will win a gift card. But hurry, because tomorrow is the deadline to drop off your masterpiece at the Idaho State Museum between 10 and 5. And that's the 411 on the 208. I'm Abby Davis.
Need a vacation? How about some companionship? No, not that kind. The man's best friend kind. Well, Galena Lodge has both of those going on with their free loaner dog program. We'll tell you all about it. Have you visited the Rio at the Galena Lodge? Well, tell us, or just tell us anything about the show. Text your name and hashtag the 208 to the number on your screen, 208-321-5614. You know the drill. Please keep them clean, concise, and clever, and you'll be one step closer to maybe seeing your comment live at the end of the show. Tucked away in the mountains of Blaine County, just outside Ketchum, is a beautiful Nordic skiing and mountain biking area. And in the midst of it, all is the glorious Galena Lodge, where you can rent gear, enjoy a bite to eat, or just kind of hang out, stay the night. Great spot. But a TikTok video posted around the holidays showed off one of the more unique offerings at the lodge, their loner dog, Rio.
So his job is to stick his head out of the office window and look super cute, and then go for snowshoe hikes with people, or in the summer he can go hiking as well.
So Rio belongs to Sheelan and Polly Laudemeyer, and her husband Kyle Oldemeyer, I should say. They own the Galena Lodge for a year, but Sheelan says that the loner dog tradition is not new. The previous owners had the lodge for 17 years and loaned out their dogs to lodge goers. So the cute dog height window was just part of the gig when they signed on, but now their dogs, Rio and his more protective sister Fly, they keep a watchful eye on the guests as they shuffle in and out of the lodge. Everyone's dogs are welcome at Galena Lodge, but if you left your furry friend at home, need someone who knows the area, or maybe just want some extra cuddles, well, Rio is your guy. And the best part, well,
Totally free, very casual, not an official program at all. Just a fun part of the business.
all right, so you can get up there and hang out with Rio. And new this year is Loner Dog swag. You can buy t-shirts or a buff with the Loner Dog all over the repping of the very popular brand, which you could see on TikTok. Only catch, you have to visit the lodge to pick one up. So just one more reason to go to there and get that exclusive t-shirt. And you can visit the Galena Lodge and Rio daily from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. in Ketchum, right off Highway 75. We now know how much money is going to help breast cancer treatment in Idaho after the Steelheads' successful Pink in the Rink weekend fundraiser. Have any guesses on the dollar amount raised? Or maybe you're going to guess how much snow we'll get next week. Anything you want to send us, now is your time. Text us, 208-321-5614. Don't forget, please include your name and hashtag the 208. Oh, and short and sweet and smart, yeah, that'll help get you on air too. That way we can show as many of your comments at the end of the show as possible, which is coming up. So get those texts in. We'll see you in a minute.
Lots of snow these past few days, and I wanted to take a minute to talk about what's going on in the mountains this weekend, because even though we had a really busy weekend last Saturday with the heavy snow falling in valley locations, mountains have seen a little bit less of that. Now, we've seen it stack up over the past few days in moderate accumulations, but as we look towards this weekend, we'll see some really warm air start to work its way in, so that will lead to some lower snow totals. So specifically for this weekend, our key elevation is going to be 4,500 feet. That's where we'll start to see the snow. We'll see 1 to 2 inches around that marker. Anywhere below that marker, likely to see rain or a rain-snow mix, but closer to that 5,500 foot range is where we'll start to see those higher accumulations, roughly 3 to 6 inches. Now, if you're thinking that the mountains may be a great destination because maybe you don't want to see the higher snowfalls, just know that in some of those backwoods areas, backcountry areas, we have the high avalanche risk that is in place for the Sawtooth Avalanche Center and the Paya Avalanche Center, also still towards that considerable range for those areas. And so those temperatures are above freezing in many spots right now across the board. In fact, a little bit cooler over in Stanley at the moment, but 37 degrees over in Haley, and still above freezing over the Magic Valley. So we have this low pressure center that is continuing to move that moisture into our area, but we also have the more mild temperatures is likely a really big difference for you compared to where we started off this week, but we are, getting closer to that 40-degree mark in many locations. So you can see those warmer colors starting to work their way in. We see less of these very chilly Arctic air colors that we saw earlier this week. And so that's why we're seeing precipitation fall as rain. Not too much of this has actually made it to the ground, likely just a mist in many areas, but the rain chances is what we'll continue to see as we go throughout the evening. So just keep that in mind if you're heading out for dinner. We do also have a low chance of seeing some freezing rain develop again in western Treasure Valley areas and eastern Oregon areas. And so just keep that in mind. But again, because our moisture is looking to be more sparse, it's likely to be very, very localized. So as we go through this active stretch that we're expecting, so more rain showers for tomorrow. And then as that moisture lifts to the north, we'll see that fall as snow at those accumulations that I mentioned. And so you can see, again, really active pattern. And that continues as we go into Sunday and Monday as well. Sunday, things look to be a little bit more morning focused. And then as we go into Monday, flip the script a little bit, and then a little bit more afternoon focused for that time frame. Again, the snow levels are expected to be around that 4,500 to 5,500 mark. So for tomorrow, we're expecting those lighter rain showers. I think Magic Valley areas will see some of those even lighter rain showers compared to Treasure Valley spots. Light snow is what we're expecting for the Central Mountains, but again, that rain-snow mix could be mixing in for places like Haley. And so as we go to the West Central Mountains, again, some of those light snow totals, warmer temperatures leading to more of that rain-snow mix. But valley locations were expected to be above freezing and towards 40 degrees as we go to look for our daytime high. Still below freezing for our low, however. And then as we go into Sunday, we're expecting to be above freezing where we stay for a little while. Wednesday, we start to see some cooler air work its way back in, and we start talking about more of that rain-snow mix.
All right, the totals for the big Pink in the Rink fundraiser are in. In case you missed this, last weekend, the Idaho Steelheads wore special edition pink and black jerseys to help the fight against breast cancer in our community. So you, the generous Steelheads fans, donated $52,500 in the auction for the special jerseys that are displayed here in the video. So that total actually shatters last year's event, which generated $37,000, and all the proceeds go towards the St. Luke's Breast Care Service, which includes screening and diagnostics, genetic counseling, comprehensive cancer treatment, and survivor support. Pink in the Rink began 2005-06 season, and the Steelheads and St. Luke's have together raised $331,000 actually $331,025, there you go, towards cancer research. And a fun fact, Carl Winks, who is actually an account executive with the Steelheads, he designed the popular jersey. Very cool. All right, we got some great comments coming in on the laptop, so we'll be right back with those. All right, let's take a look at some of your comments to end the week here. All right, this person says, good job in doing your homework regarding the St. Luke's and Saltzer Health antitrust issue 10 years ago. Sometimes antitrust is not beneficial to the consumer. Steve in Boise. Steve, a good point to be made there. All right, what other comments we got? This person says, I wish Saltzer luck finding a new doctor. I've had mine who is associated with the local hospital, and if I had an urgent need to go see her, she's booked for a month, and I go to urgent care. Yeah, this is an ongoing thing we're gonna have to follow. Excuse me, this person says the attorney who you showed testifying about the mandatory sentence for drug trafficking must have been out of the country for the last 6 decades. Our prisons are not full of bad check passers. Mandatory sentences have not worked so far. That's Scott on the 208. And this person says the fentanyl law won't deter the big suppliers. They weren't the last person to transfer the drug. It's the lowly drug dealer who ends up in jail. Great points. We will follow that next Tuesday. I spilled water all over the studio during the commercial break, so I'll go clean that up. See you next week.